Good morning, Patreon. My name's Hommy Biscuits, and this is my lovely husband, Bear. Wait, that's not how that works.
Man, I look like Bear.
I look like you. I can't do it. Julia Brown asked a whole bunch of things in one question that essentially was something to the effect of, I know you've done a lot of videos on prepping with kids. What would you suggest, by the way, speaking of prepping with kids, if you happen to hear excerpts from the Disney movie Frozen in the background, I don't know how that got there, but don't sue me for copyright infringement. Yeah, we've done a lot of videos on prepping with kids. Julia said, what would you recommend for teaching these kids, homeschooling children, elementary aged, about homesteading, about SHTF, about dealing with depression? And I'm guessing you mean like economic depression, not like, what?
You keep looking at the TV.
I
watching
can't
the
help it. No, it's in my peripheral vision, and I see it, and I'm like, kill. Wait, it's Frozen. How would you teach your kids about depression and SHTF and war and homesteading and all of these things? What scriptures to study, so forth and so on. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. The first thing that I would do is understand your kids are kids. They're resilient. They're adaptable. Their minds and their bodies and their spirit will adapt to pretty much anything. Just don't overwhelm them. If you're overwhelmed and you're stressed and you have anxiety, don't transfer that to your kids. Mm-hmm. Like if you're like, oh my gosh, the world's gonna end, your kids will be like, oh my gosh, the world's gonna end. They're looking to you to see how you are going to respond. And the way that you handle things, they will mimic that. That's how they will handle things. And so before you go about teaching your kids, you got to teach you. And to put this in a nutshell, because we're going to come back to teaching you, to put this in a nutshell, you teach your kids what you can to the best of your ability. You asked about scripture, so I'm going to tell you point blank, you're commanded to teach your kids the Torah. It's not a suggestion. You will diligently, when you stand up and when you lay down and when you walk about the way and in your house and in your field, and you will teach them this. So yeah, you should teach your kids the scriptures. And understand that when Messiah and anybody else in the Bible refers to scriptures, they're talking about the first 2/3 of the book. So I know, but those are fighting words. I don't care. Let's fight. So anyway, you teach them what they can absorb in a way that they can absorb it, but you got to be good. So you're a mom. We have 3 kids. We do preppy stuff and homesteady stuff and economic collapsey stuff. And what do you think about all of this?
I mean, like, our kids. So, first off, like, our oldest 2 are outside of elementary school age. And our youngest is before elementary school age. Mm-hmm. So, going back to a time where they were that age, number one, our life was very much different than it is now, but we stuck to kind of the basics. We didn't get really too far into any one particular subject. It was just kind of a basic overview of all of the above. They would help in the garden. They would help cook. If we were canning something, we'd have them help do that.
Butchering rabbits.
They helped butcher.
Back before Torah, yes, butchering rabbits. Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that we were, and I think still are very good at, was the world might do things a certain way. This is the way we do things. Mm-hmm. And I tell my kids all the time, we disagree now, not so much, but a lot of times vehemently, believe it or not, when we were in Texas, with how our kids were being taught and what they were being taught. And unapologetically, no, that's wrong. I don't care what your teacher says, that's wrong. And our kids, and now see, obviously you homeschool your kids, but not everybody here does. Our kids had this concept that the teacher is the ultimate arbiter of truth, that anything that they hear at school is correct and anything they heard at home is suspect, questionable. And so we always flipped the script on that. No, your parents are the ultimate arbiters of truth. Anything you hear at school that does not align with what your parents say is suspect, is questionable, is something that you need to dive into. And so that was quite interesting for us, but we've always, I think, done a good job of making sure that our kids understand that we are different than the world. And I don't necessarily want to be like the world. And so it's okay if what we do is different than everybody else. And that's from a spiritual aspect as well as a preparedness aspect, a lifestyle aspect, all of that. As far as like preparing for depression, if you mean economic depression, have security.
Well, we've been talking about money and like the fiat currency since they were of elementary school age.
Yeah. It's a great point.
And that being a reason why we prepare. And just that importance that you need to have money. Right now, money can buy you what you need, but there may come a time when that's not the case, and you need to have what you need now.
And the fragility of the system and how blessed we are because we have the system, because we have money. And we're not rich. We are in no way rich, right? Nor have we ever been rich. But how blessed we are compared to a lot of people. And it's not that we're blessed because we're lucky. We're blessed because we try and be responsible with the fiat currency that we own, and we bust our ass to get it. And so, yeah, we've been having those conversations with our kids for as long as they've been old enough to understand it, and to the depth that they would understand for as long as they've been able to understand it. But I think it's about finding those opportunities in the day to just talk about those things.
Well, and like we were never ones just to like give our kids something. Like,
that's a great point.
We, oh, you want this new video game? Okay, what chores are you going to do? What work are you going to do to earn money to get the things that you want?
Yeah, we give them the opportunity to earn rather than give them the money for the things.
Right.
And like big things or things that are like important where it's not just something they want, but perhaps something that they need, but not necessarily need right now, we'd go halves with them on it. Like, let's say there's something that's $100. It's like, I'll give you an opportunity to earn $50, and then I'll throw the other 50 in. But you got to earn that $50 first, right? So that it's attainable for them, and so that they understand the value of their time. That's something that people miss. Grown-ups, adults miss this all the time. The value of your time, and oftentimes,
there's a lot of times too that like they'd be like, you know what? I don't really want that.
That's the thing, right? Because then all of a sudden, you put, if you're a 10-year-old kid and you put 10 hours of your life into raking leaves to get $50 to buy that thing, and now you had to sweat for it for 10 hours, you're not so eager to spend that $50 on junk anymore. And so these opportunities present themselves for you to have these conversations with your kids, and rather than shying away from it, you should just lean into it. And sometimes you have to take 15 minutes of explaining foundational concepts just so that you can come back around to the point that you're trying to make so that they will understand it. As far as like economic depression, again, basic preparedness handles damn near everything, right? And it's a concept of dependence or independence. That's why this channel is called Bear Independent. Like, do you want to be dependent upon the system and the government, or do you want to be independent of that? Some people want to be dependent upon the system. They're like, the system is great, the government's great, we love it. We are not that way. And so when an opportunity presents itself with our kids to explain the difference between why some people think this way and other people think this way, we shine a light on that and we have that discussion. And then they ask questions like, why shouldn't the government just give us what we need? Well, because governments don't generate anything. They don't create anything. They can only give you something that they took from somebody else. So how is it fair that you, 10-year-old child, go work for 10 hours and get $50, and then me, who did nothing, I'm going to take $15 of that and then give it to your sister when she didn't work, and now you only get $35? And they're like, wait a minute, that's not fair. Yeah, but she believes that she has a right to have a portion of the money that you've earned for the greater good because it serves her purposes, so forth and so on. And so we don't shy away from those opportunities to have those conversations, and we strongly challenge them to think for themselves when somebody puts some BS idea into their head. It's like, yeah, but why is that?
Right.
So...
And I mean, and like, we've been talking about constitutional rights, not like delving into the whole Constitution, but when a situation arises or a topic arises, we discuss it. And so I think it's just taking every real life situation that you come into and putting it in ways and talking about it in ways that their little small attention span minds can process and grab that little tidbit of info and tuck it back.
I think too, like, again, your kids will emulate you. And so, especially when they're in elementary school, it's perfectly okay to be like, we believe this. And they will believe that simply because you believe it. However, the onus is on you as a parent to understand why we believe this and to be able to articulate it to them when they get older, when they're like, Mom, why do we worship God? Why do we think Jesus is Messiah? If your answer is, well, because, you've just ruined that kid. You're building an atheist now. Like, you got to know that, well, here's why. Because the prophecies say this, because he did this, because he fulfilled all of these things, because I've seen the way that he's moved in my life, because I've seen miraculous healing, because I've seen provision and blessing, because I can feel the power of the Spirit, because blah, 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 blah. What do you mean when you say, like, okay, well, see, we're Americans, we have freedom. Okay, cool. As they get older, what do you mean freedom? Well, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, period, the end. And endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And among these are not the only ones, but among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? And that governments derive their authority from the consent of the governed, so that the government doesn't get to tell us what to do. That's not how governments work. But it's okay to have that conversation with a third grader by saying, listen, we're free men, we're free women, and we should be, you as a third grader are subject to my authority. You're subject to a lesser extent to the authority of your teacher, but you're born free. And one day you will be in a position where you get to exercise that liberty. You get to exercise that freedom. There's a responsibility to that. And as they grow up with that preconceived notion of redemption, or freedom or whatever else. You need to be able to, on the back end, explain it to them so that it's just not some empty, hollow concept.
Right.
Right? And so the good news is if you have first graders, second graders, third graders, you have a little bit of time, but you need to know what you believe and why you believe it.
Yeah. Get your foundation solid so that you can give your kids a solid foundation.
Yeah. Otherwise, you break them. I mean, it wounds them to realize that, I mean, we see it all the time, like people who believe that their faith is empty. It's like, and maybe their faith is empty. That doesn't mean that Yah isn't sovereign over all things. It doesn't mean that Yeshua isn't Messiah. It just means that they never actually experienced it or had it explained to them in a way that was logical and relatable.
Yeah.
And so
they were just doing something because somebody told them.
Just going through the motions. And then they realize, oh, my faith, my existence is just box checker mentality, and it doesn't mean anything. And it's like, yeah, but you reap what you sow. And so if you haven't put anything into it, you're certainly not going to get anything out of it, right? And so that, again, get back to teaching your kids, preparedness is easy. You get out what you put into it. Faith is easy. You get out what you put into it. Now, when I say easy, what I should say is simple. It's very simple. It's not always easy. But teaching kids, reinforce positive behavior, discourage negative behavior, and right now they don't need to know all the why or the how. They just need to know this is what we do.
And I know medical was brought, like you can teach them like basic things, like even with like our toddler, we pretend that like her teddy bear has a hurt foot or whatever, and like we'll get out the cohesive bandage and wrap it up and do all those things, or you get a boo-boo and finding the band-aids, like where are the band-aids? And
yeah, my oldest had a state archery tournament, and now granted 13, not elementary school age, but we, early is on time is late, unless you're so early that you're actually late from yesterday, because we were super early, like 4 hours early, right? And there's all these teenagers sitting around with nothing to do. Well, it just so happens Dad always has a tourniquet on him. So impromptu stop the bleed class. And they were like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, and the way that I started it was not, listen up, maggots, here's what we're gonna do. We're all sitting around a round table, and I reached in my pocket, pulled the cat tourniquet up, threw it on the table. And they're like, what is that? Play with it, figure it out. And they all passed it around and looked at it and played with it for about 10 minutes, and it came back around to me, and they're like, okay, so what is it? Like, do y'all really want to know? And of course, my oldest, Cheyenne, is like, she knows what's up. She knows what's coming. And they're like, yeah, we want to know. I'm like, okay, it's going to take about a half an hour of your time. Are you in? Yeah, we're in. All right, cool. Stop the bleed class. So these opportunities are everywhere. You just got to lean into them. And I really believe that more so what anybody within the sound of our voice needs is not the particulars of what to do and how to do it. You need the encouragement to do what you already know how to do.
We were training Cheyenne and Harlan when they were in elementary school on the 22.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
how to shoot that, because it's a low powered, easy rifle to shoot, and they totally dug it. They loved it. And
I'll add this too. Engage in voluntary hardship. Do hard things now. It's okay, and I don't, this isn't necessarily the word that I want to use, but you shouldn't spoil your children. Spoiled brats, in my mind, I just want to pick them up and shake them.
Yeah.
And just
they raise entitled adults.
Yeah. So don't spoil your kids, but it's not their entire life doesn't need to be hardship, but occasionally and regularly they should be subjected to hardship, and they should learn to voluntarily accept hardship. Do hard things without sighing, without rolling your eyes, without throwing a fit. Just understand, today we're gonna ruck 3 miles, or today you were gonna muck this sheep pen, or today you were gonna get in that garden and pull weeds, or this weekend there will be no electricity, or whatever. Because it hardens them. Because that hardship trains them up to be a little bit more resilient than they would be without it. And when you talk about depression, you talk about war, you talk about SHTF, it's basic preparedness addresses all of those things. All of them. What you need, this is Prepper Classroom 101. You need the stuff, stockpile material goods. Couple that with training, and then couple that with heart set, mindset, skill set. Well, the heart set and the mindset, man, that's voluntary hardship. Like, oh, this sucks, cool. Let's make a game out of it. Let's do it together. Let's all be in the suck together. Because what's really stressful is when there's something that comes up that sucks, and your entitled brats are losing their ass because they don't want to do it. And you just want to pick them up and shake them. I don't care if you want to do it or not. This is what we're doing. And again, we've had that conversation a few times with our kids. I don't care if Bobby is having a sleepover this weekend. This is what we're doing. And then they've really learned to take you seriously when you say, this is what we're doing. They quit rolling their eyes at you.
Quit fighting you.
They quit huffing and they just get it. Yep, this is what we're doing. Because at some point, life is going to suck, not because Dad made it suck voluntarily, but because situations have gotten to where life sucks. But then again, does it? That gets back to like being appreciative. No, we're alive. We're redeemed. We have food. We have water. We have shelter. We're warm. We're cool. Like we're good.
Stuff on the eggs.
We're blessed, and you get that perspective of blessing from voluntary hardship. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Shalom, y'all.
Shalom.